This is just a quick tips and tricks video on setting up periodic boundary conditions in Fluent. So we'll start off in the mesher. If we're using Ansys meshing, we want to ensure that the periodic boundary conditions, so these two faces here, are going to have a one-to-one conformal mesh. To do that, we simply come over to the mesh, do a right mouse button, insert, and select this match control. We can either select the faces manually, or we can use named selections, so it's always a good idea to create these as named selections in Space Claim before heading into Fluent, because that'll also help us establish the boundary condition itself. But I'll just go ahead and use the geometry selection since these are nice and big, and we pick the faces. And the axis of rotation, we can just simply use the global coordinate system and it'll detect that for us. So it's also important to make sure that these faces are oriented around a axis, and for CFD we typically prefer the Z-axis or the Z-axis, if you will, but it doesn't matter, you can use the X or Y, and then anyway that creates a match control, and basically that ensures that these periodics have a conformal mesh, and then we don't have to interpolate or create a mesh interface there. So when we bring the mesh into Fluent for setting up a simulation, the two periodics by default get set to wall boundary conditions, so we can see them here in the feature tree. We can simply select them, we can select both at one time, and we need to change those into an interface type boundary condition, so just a right mouse button, set type to interface. We could have also selected from the user window, the graphics user window, so you can see here you can select the surface types dynamically as well there, and now they're interfaces. We then just set them to be periodic. So again, you can select them here from the graphics window, or we could have selected them from the feature tree. Again, we use a right mouse button and there's a periodic option, and we set periodic. We know the option is going to be conformal for the mesh. We established that in the meshing, so we turn that to conformal. We want to make sure it's set to rotational and set the axis of rotation up. There is an option to auto compute the offset. I tend to find it doesn't work all the time, so I manually put it in. If I know what the angle is between these two faces, I just put it in manually and then simply hit create, and we get our periodic boundary condition there. If we're using Fluent meshing, then the feature for making sure that the two surfaces are conformal is under generate surface mesh. We use the right mouse button menu, insert next task, and we select setup periodic boundaries. You'll notice there's a couple options here. We can do translational or rotational. In this case it's rotational. Most situations are for turbo machinery typically, and we have an option for either automatic or manual. I guess somewhat ironically, if we pick automatic, then we actually select both sides. Again, it's very useful having these name selections preset, and we just simply click on set up periodic boundaries, and it'll ensure that both sides are conformal. And when we bring the mesh into Fluent solution mode from the Fluent meshing, the periodic is automatically established as a boundary condition, so we don't need to modify that at all.